What would you do if your dream was so close and yet so far at the same time? This is the story of Greg Dortch, a man who was doubted at every step of the way, and this is how he became the little engine that could. Born May 29th, 1998 in Rochester, New York, to Greg and Loretta Dortch. Greg's love for the game started young. His mom said he came out of the womb with the ball, and he's been in love with the game ever since.
My mama say since I was born, I've always had a football in my hands. For me, it probably started my first year playing football for the Holland Springs Saints. I was 6, and that's when I first moved to Virginia. So when I picked up the football at 6 years old, I haven't looked back since.
The goal of reaching the NFL isn't an easy one, and it all starts on the road to glory, from high school to the NFL. For Greg, his journey would start in Richmond, Virginia, playing wide receiver and DB for the Highland Springs Springers, where in his junior year he would show why he was a legitimate weapon on the high school level and why, despite his size limitations, he was a legitimate prospect for Division I football teams to look at and scout. And he did that by snagging 914 yards and 16 touchdowns on only 41 receptions. That effort would earn him a first-team All-Region 5A South nod at both wide receiver and kick returner. That showing would also earn him his first few Division I offers from James Madison, Norfolk State, and Wake Forest University. Wake Forest being the college that he would eventually choose to commit to before the start of his high school senior campaign, where he would do something even more special, solidifying himself as a Virginia high school football legend, leading his team to their first state championship in 54 years.
Since 1961, since Highland Springs last won a state championship in football. But that changed Saturday afternoon at Scott Stadium behind a dominant defensive performance that held Stonebridge to under 200 yards of total offense and big plays by Kevon Wallace and Greg Dortch that led Highland Springs to the championship 27-7 over Stonebridge.
I couldn't want to do it with a different bunch of group of brothers. We worked hard. Nobody thought we could do it, but we did it. I love all my teammates and coaches.
Doing that and grabbing 55 receptions for 1,029 yards and 10 touchdowns as a senior would grant him the honor of being awarded the 5A State Player of the Year and the Richmond All-Metro Player of the Year honors, exemplifying him as one of the best football players in the state of Virginia. Greg Dortch was now undeniable. One coach said, "Some of the things that Dortch did is just wow. If he was bigger, he'd have every offer in the country," which resonates closely with the sentiment that his current teammate expresses about him today.
I feel like Dortch is unguardable as far as, one-on-one, knowing where to be in the zones. He's just got the nuance and the savvy to him that you want in a receiver, and not everybody has it. And I say that like it's not very common, and he's 5'7", like he's, if he was 6'3", he'd be a top 5 pick, and then if that's what I think, that's the type of football player that he is.
But despite his elite showings during his senior year, he would only earn himself 3 more Division I offers from the likes of Hampton, Maryland, and the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. But that wouldn't mean much to Greg anyways, since he was already committed to his future alma mater, Wake Forest. The easy part was done. Now it was time for Greg to show that he could dominate on the collegiate level the same way he'd been doing in high school. As a redshirt freshman, Greg would light a torch under the entire town of Winston-Salem, breaking multiple school records and doing things they'd never seen before. He set school redshirt freshman records for all-purpose yards, punt return yards, and receptions. He tied the team lead in receptions with 53. He was the team leader in receiving yards and touchdown receptions with 722 yards and 9 touchdowns. His 1,270 total offense yards were the 7th most in the ACC. He was named to the mid-season All-ACC team by ESPN, and he was gaining steam. Nobody could stop him. His 9 touchdown catches were the 2nd most by an ACC freshman, only behind Sammy Watkins. And he had the 11th most reception and 10th most receiving yards by a freshman in ACC history. But on October 28th, 2017, he'd taste despair.
The 5-3 Louisville Cardinals, the 4-3 Wake Forest Demon Deacons set to square off on ACC football.
Wake Forest Demon Deacons versus the Louisville Cardinals, a classic ACC matchup. A game that would put Greg Dortch on the map and simultaneously take him off of it. A game where he would go on to break yet another school record. This time it was the record for TD receptions in a game with 4. His first touchdown of the game came in the first quarter off a quick screen pass, which he took 32 yards to the house to put the Demon Deacons up 14-3. His second touchdown in the game would almost cost him his life. Up 14-3 with 10 minutes and 35 seconds left in the fourth quarter, John Wolford sends Dortch in motion and throws him a swing pass. Greg catches the ball and beats the defender to the end zone by diving for the pylon. Touchdown. Greg had scored, but something was wrong. He stayed down for a couple seconds after the play. When asked what was wrong with him, he said, "I thought I just got the wind knocked out of me." What he didn't know is that during his second touchdown of the game, he suffered an injury that could have costed him his life. But that didn't stop him from getting back into the game and grabbing 2 more touchdowns, leading his team to victory over Lamar Jackson's electric Louisville team. It was only after the game when Greg noticed something was very, very wrong. He said, "Every time I would breathe, or laugh, or move, I would just feel a sharp pain." Dortch said, "It was probably the worst pain of my life." He eventually approached one of the team's athletic trainers, where he told them he felt hollow. The trainer said that was a word he had never heard before to describe pain. He knew he had to send him to the hospital. His mother, Loretta Dortch, said he probably would have lost his life if he hadn't gone. It turns out on the play where he scored his second touchdown, while diving for the pylon actually punctured his lower intestine, leaving a hole about the size of a ping pong ball in his gut, causing him to need surgery immediately. Greg's love for the game is so immense. The first thing he asked when he came to was, "Can I play?" The answer was no. After having the best game of his collegiate career to date, a freak accident would knock him out of the lineup for the remainder of the season. But despite that, Greg would still be named second team All-ACC and the runner-up to Boston College A.J. Dillon as ACC Rookie of the Year. In Greg's redshirt sophomore year, he would bounce back like he never left. He continued to show that he was a dominant force at the collegiate level, bringing in 1,078 receiving yards and 8 touchdowns on 89 receptions. Greg had done enough in 2 seasons to believe that he was a talent that deserved a shot at the NFL. His play on the field certainly showed it, his stats showed it, and Greg knew he was ready for the big leagues. So on December 23rd, 2018, he declared for the draft. At this point, the little engine, Greg Dortch, is gearing up to climb to the apex of the hill, having shown that he can do things at the college levels that most receivers could never do. He was still the little engine, and that reflected on how the NFL viewed him coming into the draft. Scouts doubting him. NFL Lance Zierlein gave him the lowest grade possible at a 5.40 and said this about Greg's weaknesses: too nonchalant with elements of his routes, lacks consistent push in the drive phase, needs to get in and out of his breaks with consistent quickness, frame too small for contested catches, waits for throws to get to him. Thursday, April 25th, 2019. Draft day.
The closer we get, for some reason I'm not really worried. I'm not nervous, I'm not anxious, I'm just smooth right now, because I know I did everything that I could do up to this point. There's nothing else that I could do to help me right now. So if it's meant for me, then it's meant for me. God, it's already written. Like, God has already taken care of everything that he can do. So at this point, it's nothing really much more for me to do.
Day 1 goes by, and his name isn't called. Day 2 goes by, and his name isn't called. Day 3 goes by, and his name isn't called. Greg was overlooked. But then the Jets came calling, offering the undrafted rookie free agent a contract. Greg cried that night, but not because he had been drafted or because he had been signed, but because all he wanted was his name to be called so he could make his dad proud.
I don't know, when I cried when I didn't get a call, when I didn't get drafted, and then I realized when I was getting signed to a team, but I cried because I didn't get drafted. I cried because I wanted my dad to see my name come across the TV and like just see his face when my name got called. And when that didn't happen, that's when I cried because I felt like I let him down.
But nevertheless, he would get his shot with the Jets, and he would capitalize. After having an impressive training camp and preseason with the Jets, he was cut and claimed on waivers by the Panthers. And in one of his very first real NFL games as a returner for the Panthers, he fumbles. He was cut, and he finished the year on the practice squad with the Rams, where he was cut. And then he signed to the Atlanta Falcons. I think I can. I think I can. I think I can. And on August 3rd, 2021, he would sign to the Arizona Cardinals, where he would show the entirety of the Arizona Cardinals fan base that he could. All I could remember as a Cardinals fan was 38 is special. Greg Dortch shook the entire Red Sea with the amount of plays that he was making in training camp and in preseason. He seemed completely unguardable, and he had everybody wondering where he had came from. I personally knew that Greg Dortch was going to be a star, and his abilities were rare as a route runner, as a catcher, and after the catch. And in 2022, Greg Dortch will finally get his shot. With Rondale Moore out, the starting slot position was his. And with his first shot as a receiver in the NFL, he would put the league on notice for 3 weeks straight. He went off, grabbing 7 catches for 63 yards, and in a week after that, he would see how NFL pay dirt felt for the first time, scoring his first TD on a slant route versus the Raiders, hauling in 55 yards and 4 touchdowns. And in week 3, he would grab 9 receptions and 80 yards versus the Los Angeles Rams. After only having 15 yards in 19 games dressed, Greg Dortch in only 3 weeks put up 198 yards and a touchdown. Not too shabby for the 5'7", 175-pound undrafted free agent out of Wake Forest, huh? And he was only getting started. In week 11, Greg would have his best game to date. In the high altitudes of Mexico City, Greg would let it be known that he was truly here to stay by putting up 103 receiving yards on 9 receptions against the powerhouse San Francisco 49ers. And then following that up in week 16 with a 10 reception, 98 yard game versus Tampa. Greg finished off 2022 with 4 starts. And in those 4 starts, he would haul in 52 receptions, 467 yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Greg had taken his opportunity and made the most of it. He had reached the apex. Now it was time for him to gain some momentum. But after head coach Cliff Kingsbury was fired in the offseason, an entire new regime was set in place under Jonathan Gannon and Drew Petzing. It was back to square one. But Greg Dortch is no stranger to having to prove himself, and he would do that again in 2023. After a frustrating 10 weeks of only being targeted 1 time for 2 yards, only being used as a special teams piece, knowing what he could bring to the team as a receiver, Greg was finally given the playing time that he had earned throughout his countless hours of hard work and dedication through the years. And in week 11, he'd show why he should have been starting, grabbing 6 receptions and 76 yards. And in week 16, he'd put up another amazing game against the Eagles, grabbing 7 receptions and 82 yards. Even though in 2023, Greg Dortch only put up 266 yards. That's nowhere near close to his potential. And it doesn't even begin to explain the plays that he made to get 266 yards. Greg is electric in the receiving game and in the returning game. And now in 2024, Greg is stepping into his first opportunity as an NFL starter, and his teammates cannot stop hyping him up.
No, Dortch, I feel like Dortch is making me a better player by the day. Each day when we go into practice, I know that I got to bring my best foot forward because I know that Dortch is coming.
Dortch too. Dortch is like a glitch. Like he's definitely different too.
Greg Dortch is legit. Greg took every opportunity presented to him and capitalized on it. I think Greg Dortch is on his way to greatness. I think he's going to shock the entire league next season. I think he can. And he's gaining momentum. Greg Dortch, the little engine that could. Just a kid from Richmond living his dream playing in the NFL. Light the Dortch.
Well, as you can see, I'm not a big guy, so I just try to use everything that I have. Like I said, man, I'm not a big guy. I'm really wasn't even supposed to be here. Like I said, I just work my tail off every day. I just try to work my tail off, come in, and just take advantage of every opportunity that I have.